October 14th, 2025. The meeting is called to order. This is a public meeting. Minutes are recorded. The meeting is broadcast on Zoom and recorded for YouTube replay. Please turn on your microphone. Any public commenters, please step up to the microphone. Please direct your comments through the chair and keep your comments on point and concise. Roll call today: Liz Joya, present. Stephen Gold, present. Ron Hawkins, present. Bob Perkins, present. Nancy Rowe, present. Richard Stetson, present. Elliot Thompson, present. And Harbor Master Steve Pixley is with us also. The agenda is on the table for all of you. Public comments on non-agenda items. We don't seem to have anybody here for that, so we'll move on from that. Meeting minutes approval. We have meeting minutes for two meetings.
Who's taking minutes this week?
Right, Richard.
That's what you get for asking.
Sounds like Richard Stetson is taking
I
that.
wondered what could be followed.
No, I don't have a copy.
Doesn't that usually fall on new
Here.
members?
Uh-oh. You have an extra copy or no?
I can print them. Next meeting minutes, we not having a committee secretary, we are doing the minutes on a rotating basis by alphabetical last name. Last meeting was Thompson T. Then we're starting back at the beginning of the alphabet with Liz Joya. Liz, will you accept responsibility for the meeting minutes?
Yes.
Thank you.
I was going to say my name's spelled wrong on this, but it still puts me
You
off.
still
It's
lose?
still lose. I still lose.
I correct.
Okay.
I couldn't get
That's
his
okay.
document to correct that. Yes, right. Meeting minutes assignment, yes, right, Richard, thank you. Meeting minutes approval for the August 12th and September 9th. I know this is probably the first that any of you are seeing the minutes. Perhaps you can take some time to scan them as we're having our meeting, and we can vote on the minutes down at the end of the meeting. So moving on from that, the next meeting date is not the second Tuesday in November because that is a holiday and the town office is closed. And therefore, the meeting will be on Tuesday, November 18th. Tuesday, the 18th. We have a new committee member with us today. We see select board status of appointments. And the member is Nancy Rowe.
Hey,
Uh,
looking forward to it.
Imagine many of you are familiar with Nancy from her activities on the harbor, including at Lyman Morse. Nancy is has been appointed as an alternate member, and Liz Joya is now a voting member. Congratulations, Liz.
Heavy weighs the crown.
Watch out.
So we have a full committee. Once again, it's nice. Moving on, Harbor Master report.
Well, good morning, everybody. I would say that I'd like to report, one of the things is that this time of year, we're not pumping out visiting boats, we're pumping out residents and locals that are getting ready to pull their boats out from the harbor master, state-funded pump out boat. And that's been going well. Today, I'm going to take out the old pump out boat, the one that I've retrofitted to use as a response boat. That's coming out today. And I'm going to send that up to Lincolnville, Don's Outboard. They do all the winterization. Then it comes back and we shrink wrap it and put it in storage. The last day for the other pump out boat it's usually the last week, the last Thursday or Friday of October is when I, in the past, have taken it out. Same with right after I do that, then we take steamboat landing floats out. It's usually the last Friday in October. But the falls are becoming better and better as the years go by. So, the ordinance says the last day you can have your boat on the finger float system is October 15th. And over the years, that's been, people are like, oh, when are you taking them out? And, you've got a bunch of hardy locals that really want to keep the boats in longer. And over the years, I've realized that if we've had a late summer, bad run of weather, then all of a sudden beautiful weather in the fall, it doesn't make sense to take them out or make them take their boats off on the 15th. So we play that by ear. Been doing some work on Curtis Island, taking some garbage off that. Yeah, that's about it for my report. But I can field questions if you have any.
You talked about last Friday in October. That's the traditional steamboat float removal time.
Usually, I'd be working when Rick Seibel was the director of Public Works. We'd work together, and he'd be like, "I can't do it. It might be raining that day, so we do it the next." But it's right around that area. So a lot of folks will call, and I'll say to them, "It's probably going to be this date," and I'll give them the, when I say it might, unless there's a big storm that comes, big southeasterly comes 4 days. We only did that twice in my tenure where we had to pull them early, and then you only got 6 days or 5 days. Why put them all back? So I would tell the folks just be wary. There's a big storm coming out when that storm comes to protect them.
We have a town newsletter that Holly publishes. And I think it would be good for calendar events like that to be included in the newsletter. I don't know the timing of the next one, if something could be.
Well, they also have the text alert. You could do a text, right?
Yep.
And tell us about the text alert system.
That's being reformed as we speak because we've got the new software coming in that we're transferring all of our old data from a very antiquated system to a new one. But basically, that's everyone who's got a permit who elects to be in that, and that's pretty much 98% now. They get a text alert saying something like, "Hey, flash warning! We've got a big nor'easter coming. Check your painters. Make sure you've got a safety pennant on. Check your vessels out there." Stuff like that. It's just a basic way to get your information out.
Have you used that system this season?
I think we did.
It's been effective personally for the Snow Bowl. It gives you, hey, we're closing early. Hey,
Right.
So I think it might be a good, quick way to get information out.
I'm curious if Steve used it for harbor-related.
I think we used it for something, but I can't. It wasn't like a storm. It was something else.
Might have been classics. I don't
Maybe
know.
that was it.
Yeah.
For classics, and they talk about when the date of the classics and basic. There's more traffic, so be careful. For that. I think I used it for the 4th of July parade as well.
It would be, I think it would be good if non-permittees were able to opt into that system.
I mean, yeah.
They probably are. I can't imagine somebody's actually checking.
Well, I mean, when you say non-permittees, there's no way for the system to work. We obviously have every mooring holder. We've got hopefully their cell number, and that's how we get that information in. So then.
And I think you can sign up for them all.
Yeah.
Well, through the Snow Bowl, you
You
can.
just check,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I could check now that, because we're literally in the process. In the next 3 months, we're going to be finishing putting all the new data or the old data into the new system, and then we have some meetings with the folks that have the software. So it's like 3 people on a screen answering questions for Jimmy, and then for my side about harbor data and lat launch and stuff like that. So we'll definitely bring that up Unless Jimmy might already know that. But are you saying, Elliot, that you want folks that, that don't have a mooring and don't have a permit of any type still to be able to get a message?
If they want it for harbor-related issues,
Yeah.
Sure,
I
yes,
could-
I am saying
I
that.
could ask that. Yeah, like a visitor that comes
You
in.
can opt in.
Yeah.
To the harbor alert system.
Yep, we could do that, I think. So I'll look into that.
Okay. But, so will you be issuing an alert sometime this month prior to steamboat and finger float removal?
Yes, but Holly and I have already discussed what that projected date is, and she talked to me that about 3 days ago. She's probably putting that on the webpage and maybe the news page. So yeah.
But I just want to be clear, that are you going to issue a text alert regarding float removal? Let people know the floats are coming out.
Yeah,
Those that might not read the newsletter. They're on their boat and they don't read the newsletter. Do you understand what I'm asking?
yeah. I mean, in the past, what I've done is I put something on the Harbor Master Facebook page, saying, here's the dates, projected dates, get your boats out, hope you had a great season, something like that, yeah.
I'm not getting an affirmation about the text alert. I mean, the system's there. People are signed up for it. Why wouldn't we use that to let them know?
Yeah. Okay, then.
I would think it would save the town angst I'm just making it up because I'm actually going to take it out in 2 days, but not just for moorings, but to get the rowboats out of there. So
Oh, yeah.
rather than me having to anticipate whether something's happening, and I understand storms are different, but just getting something that says, hey, the steamboat landing floats are coming out on this date,
Yeah.
then I know to go get it out of your way.
Yep, we're going to do that. We're going to put that on the text system saying, get your boats off by this, because the projected date, we always say projected date. Weather might prevent it, but this is when we're planning on taking them out. So yes, we're going to use the new text alert and we're going to put stars on it and.
There's an affirmation. How's that? Now official.
Thank you, Bob.
How about
for
bells and whistles?
extracting-
Yeah,
I'm gonna put that in the.
whatever you guys want. Maybe balloons will fall when you press on it.
Harbor Master reluctantly, but very enthusiastically.
Okay, that's great. Okay, any other issues for?
I just have just a generic question, not any detail, but back in June, early July, we were talking about a slow start. When we got to August or September, is the feeling that it was entirely normal, or did it stay a little under busy?
I would say you actually had a very slow start. And Nancy, you're on the water all day long, so correct me if you agree with me. And then August came, the last week of July, August came, and then it actually seemed like it spiked up to be like 2 weeks of like, wow, more than usual. And then that slowly petered off. And I think it's been it's like even in the last 2 weeks where you have a lull usually, because it's not leaf peeper season yet. It's still like, especially folks walking in town, you're like, oh my God, it's a lot of people in town.
Yeah.
So yeah, slow start. And then, and it seems like it's really kind of like that fireworks that goes off and it's still sparkling as it goes down. It's slowly, that's kind of what it's like.
I think
What
for
about
us,
money wise?
Money wise, as far as like overnight dockage, what do you mean by money wise?
Revenue generated by dockage, visiting dockage.
I mean, I would say that petered off quick. We still have a 55 footer at the dock right now. So I think that was the same thing. You know, we had boats, not a lot, but slowly petering off. And like I said, folks that have 45, 50 footers, couples usually that have heaters in their boats or were enjoying the last part of the cruising season. Yeah.
Okay, anything else for Harbor Master Pixley? Very good, we'll move on. We have someone has joined us here. Welcome.
Good morning, all.
Please introduce yourself.
Select Board Member Chris O'Rowe.
And Chris, why are you here with us today?
I am going to be the new liaison to the Select Board. for
Well,
the
welcome.
committee. So,
Welcome.
Susan and I squabbled a little over who got to come hang out with you guys.
Susan fired us.
But keep it, I wanted it too, so.
Oh, my God.
I,
Needs to be in
in
demand.
addition to all these things, I do a lot of stuff with boats and docks, both in Rockport and elsewhere on the coast, so.
Chris,
Welcome.
yes, welcome. And let's spell your first name for us.
CHRISSO.
So,
It's RHEAULT. It's written on the thing over there on the.
Oh.
Did they get it spelled
There we
right?
go. Okay, great.
And apologize for being a little late. I got stuck behind a school bus
Okay.
that time of year.
Do you have any comments to share with us?
Since I can't see it, does that board
Well,
have
with your
anything to do
introduction.
with us?
Not currently.
Okay, great.
Dingy
Moving on, where you have the topic of dinghies, and that was, of course, a big conversation for us last month. And I wanted to preface our discussion by sharing some of my own comments. First of all, and for the benefit of not only ourselves, but for Nancy and Chriso, what it is what we've been talking about related to dinghies. And I conceive of it as an analysis of town dinghy dockage facilities and usage. That's what I think that we've been doing. And why are we doing it? I think that there is a perception that the town facilities are overutilized and overcrowded. And also there is a lack of, I don't know what the right word to use is, lack of people following common sense procedures for tying up their dinghies and courtesies also. And the goal of this activity is for us to report to the select board our conclusions, share with the select board the data that we collected, and give the select board our recommendations for action going forward. I'd like to share what I think is some context for the dinghy issue in the town of Camden. The town of Camden population, my internet search showed it in 2020 at 5,300 residents in Camden. We have, I think it was reported, 207 dinghy permits. So 200, and if you break the population down into households, and I don't know if there's any actual data on that, but I use the factor of 2.5 residents in a household. That is just under 2,100 households in town. So we have 5,200 residents, 2,100 households. We have 207 dinghy permits. So and of those permits, some percentage of them are non-residents. But using that 207 number, that's 4% of the population, 207 out of 5,200. And out of households, it's 10%. So dinghy issues probably aren't important to a significant portion of the town residents.
Just clarification, do you mean that there are 207 dinghy permits that are able to be given out or that currently people have?
Those are issued.
those were issued
Oh, were
this year.
issued. Okay, got it.
And it's our understanding that dinghy permit availability is unlimited.
Does that,
Elliot,
is a dinghy also a kayak, or is that a separate category?
That's how they are permitted.
So in your number, it would include kayaks?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yes, Stephen.
I just wanted to point out that we've always had our discussion using the word dinghy. And in fact, that does not appear in the ordinance, either in the actual ordinance or in the definition section. And the definition section, the ordinance section just talks about size. So I think our discussion should be aimed towards what we're calling a small boat facility with size restrictions, because there was discussions and implications about whether these permits should only go to people who had actual dinghies to get to moored
Not even in the
boats
definitions.
or whatever.
Hmm.
And I think for Nancy's benefit, I should just tell you that all the kayak storage around town, the racks at Lake Beach, et cetera, they all need a permit.
Okay.
So a significant percentage of those permits are for kayaks that are not at the docks.
Gotcha.
Okay, I appreciate those comments, Stephen. And-
Well, thank you, Elliot.
Yes, the dinghy is not in the definitions.
No.
So I wasn't drunk last night.
That's what I was looking for.
Or
the
incompetent.
definitions.
I was looking at it, I don't understand this, maybe I don't have it, it won't open, I don't see dinghy anywhere. I must not know what I'm doing.
Okay, I have cited the
Could be all of the above.
specifications, 10817B. I believe in the appendix is where the dimensions are defined. 14 by 6?
No, they're right in 10817B.
Okay, 10817B, and the term dinghy is not expressed in that section?
Nope.
Well, what is it?
And I remember us having this conversation 15 years ago, Steve, with this committee, and at that point, they didn't think it was necessary. But I think the time has come where it is necessary now, because you guys, I think rightfully so, are about to try to manipulate what these personal small watercrafts are for. Like, is it to get to your boat that you have a permit for a mooring, or is it just for you to get on the beach and go for a kayak paddle? And so I think we're on the right track.
I think that we shouldn't get hung up on dinghy now even more because it's not a word that's been used. But I think that the real conversation is there's a kayak that represents different types of issues. There are small boats that have motors on them and most of those, not all, but are going to be Avons or whatever. And then there's the classical rowboat. And that we need to think it, not so much Steve's thing of exactly how is that boat being used. It's more like what kind of storage implications do each of those boats implicate? Because obviously engines take up room and often are left up and et cetera. And kayaks are just a different kettle of fish.
I agree. To a point, because if the committee wants to start thinking about like having a communal dinghy share system, you wouldn't have a communal kayak that people are going to use. You know what I mean? So you have to kind of figure out a little bit on what is the exact reason someone wants to have that boat stored there. Why can't they put it on the hood of their car and not take up space and stuff like that? That should be a little bit in the conversation.
Okay, I'm looking at Article 5, 10817B. The harbor master shall assign numbers annually to dinghies, tenders, and skiffs and other vessels regularly tied or stored on designated town floats. So there's the term dinghy,
Mhm.
but that statement is kind of defining a set of vessels there. it's not stating what the vessels are used for. And I don't think that's our domain to define what a dinghy
No, we
is
don't really
used
need
for.
to know that. We just need to change what we're,
Well, furthermore.
it's not a dinghy,
the-
yeah.
One exact, and I'll use more the motorized. One of those things could be used subjectively by an individual for, they might want to go out to Mark Island and on a quiet day, or they might want to just go out to their boat, or maybe they do both things with the same boat. So I don't think that we get very far by trying to police the activities that one uses the boat for. It's more about what are the logistics of keeping it at any of the particular floats.
What is the permit called? That's more, I mean, it's not called a dinghy permit. What's it called?
I think the application
Thank you.
says dinghy.
It does,
Okay.
it does say the, yeah, resident and non-resident dinghy
Small
permit.
vessel, it can be,
Small
it doesn't,
vessel,
has
yeah,
to be.
Small boat, small vessel.
Yeah, hang on, but
Yeah, I don't think we need to get hung up on that word.
Yes, we have a dinghy permit here available to us today. Dinghy permit application.
There it is. There it is.
So we're considering dinghies for the purpose of these conversations, all of the small boats that are getting those
All the stuff
stickers.
that's presently there. And when Elliot was sort of fumbling for a word, I was thinking cohesion, that there's just too many things that get in each other's way at these places. And if we sort them out, we might find that you can get more in there, or we might at least find that the existing number of boats would play better with each other if they were segregated to their types of boat.
And that's one of the issues, the solutions that we discussed previously was segregating, locating by type.
So I was thinking about this. These are shower thoughts this morning. Steve, that float that's right under the seawall by your office, are those all rowboat type boats, or do people put small things there and bring their engines down to it?
Yeah, there's a couple people that have like electric engines that they put on those.
But they don't get stored with the engine
Yeah,
on
they,
it.
they.
Oh, they
can,
do?
yep.
Yeah, there might be one or two that have a
You get
small,
up on the float and people,
yeah, a little 2 horsepower engine on a inflatable.
Yeah, my dad has a little
And it-
boat.
so do that. Because I remember when I stayed there, I would flip my boat over, but they must be coming up and staying open to the,
Yeah, we usually ask that they pull their plug, so if it rains, their boat doesn't fill water and then half sink the float.
And how does someone get to use that particular float?
Yeah, they just put their boat there.
find an opening and go for it.
Yeah, it's
First come, first
it's definitely
served.
nicer, but at the same time, it's at low tide, you've got to navigate the ladder to get to it, so it kind of evens itself out.
For all, yes, yes, Nancy.
Has there been any thought given to some dry storage for dinghies, like at Steamboat Landing or at Lake Beach? I went over, kind of took a peek. I did send you guys a letter. I watched your last committee meeting. I sent you via Susan a letter about some of my thoughts. But anyway, that kayak rack that's there, what if if you had some dry storage for dinghies underneath, put the kayaks above, and the people who don't use their dinghies very much simply, grab it from there and go. You could even have an outboard rack that people could, lock on there. And similarly, maybe at Lake Beach, that might work and have it be, the fee would be less to use that as
Yeah, yeah.
opposed to having it in the water.
Yeah, to encourage them. And along that line, Nancy, a while ago, I was thinking of putting like some kind of ramp alongside the ladder with like fake green turf to make it somewhat slippery, so they could just grab their thing and just slide it down and slide it up to get it on and off the beach. That might be enticing. So then folks would see it and be like, oh, it's less money, and then I can put my dinghy there. So that's a good idea.
I think that rack started for small rowboats.
Yeah.
And then kayaks, and it didn't work that, I mean, there were some people who used it. They were a little tight and you had to somehow the issue Steve's talking about. You had to get your rowboat from the water up and in, and then the next thing you know, it looked like a kayak rack.
Yeah. I mean, they do make dinghy caddies
Yeah.
that you could have there in hopes that it wouldn't get stolen, but it makes it really easy to get dinghies out, in and out of the water. I also looked at Steamboat Landing, and you'd have to get a little creative, but on the left side, people are starting to throw their kayaks there. I mean, you could set some,
Well, that's one of the spots that think it's a great, because we already had to build that up already,
right.
and we got money from the federal government to build that area up. That would have to build up just a little bit more, and you could put a whole nother rack there.
Where are you talking about?
As you go down to launch your boat, we have a aluminum rack that's been there for
Yeah,
about 50
right.
years on your left as you walk down.
Yeah.
Put one on your right. There's a rock there towards the condos. Right there as you go down.
How much space
Sure.
do we have before you get to the frontage of the condos?
We have enough space to put that. Yep.
And on the left
You'd be
side-
surprised. Those bushes, before you get that rug, all those bushes and everything is actually on town property. I remember when I first took office, I think it was someone in Public Works. I think it was Rick Seibel was like, "Oh, look, he uncovered the thing. Here's the thing." It's like, wow, they've encroached on town property. We don't really care, but like all the bushes that are there, when you have to back up they're all in public. We don't say anything because it really doesn't matter. But we definitely have enough room to put another rack there. At least go look at it and say, that's a good idea.
I think the key would be to price it to make it attractive so that people will use it. And probably the people who aren't using their tenders much.
Yeah.
And Nancy, you say price it. I'm not sure I understand.
Well, I assume there's a dinghy fee, correct? A
Mhm.
permit fee?
Mhm.
There's a permit.
Yeah, maybe you have two separate tiers, those who are storing in the water and those who are using a dry stack.
I don't think the fees for dinghies are a motivating factor.
Could
I
be.
mean, and I wouldn't want, as opposed to if Lyman Morse was doing something, then you want to turn storage into a profit center. But with the public spot, we're not trying to
Right.
charge $800
No.
to tie your
No.
boat up.
No.
You have to lower
Then
what
it
we
has
already
private.
have.
Yeah, and there's no reason,
Right,
Right,
yeah.
and then-
Financially,
I
if
think
we
that's what
do
Nancy
that.
meant, is do a half price,
Yeah,
do a half
Yeah.
price for dry storage.
something to make it a
Get
little
some
more
boats out of the
attractive.
water. Yeah.
Exactly.
So that people,
That would also require Steve to go around every morning to see if all the dinghies are in the right place.
Well, it'd be easy because you just make a blaringly different color sticker, and that sticker says you can put it here and not here.
And so Nancy, differentiation in handling and permit pricing infers an enforcement capability to back that up, just as we've seen these last comments.
I would
Somebody
assume,
has to go around, he's not supposed to be there. He's
Yeah.
supposed to be over there.
are they currently enforcing who has a permit and who doesn't? I mean, I would assume you do it the same way. I
Yeah,
mean,
well,
I'm the new kid,
Every
so I
once in
don't
a
know.
while, yeah.
Yeah, we
go around.
we'll do
Yeah.
around it and we'll put tags on saying this doesn't belong here. We'll give it a week. And then if it's not there, well, because obviously if it doesn't have a permit, we can't call them. If you had a permit, then it'd be easy, because on my phone, on the new system, I can be like, right there, I can be like, yeah, Miss Jones, you have a permit, but not for this spot. Oh, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. Whereas now we leave a actual tag, on the boat, and then we give it a week, and then if no one comes and gets it, we put it to Jimmy Leo used to call dinghy purgatory, the big float, our Tibbetts float in the cove. we tow him there, and so now someone's like, "Where's my dinghy?" And it's like, "Oh, is that the one that had a tag on it?" And we tagged that 3 weeks ago. Now some people don't check; they never like you said, Nancy. Some people don't use their boat, so then they go and I could charge $100. I usually don't. The ordinance says I can, but it's someone who didn't know, but we might have to start charging.
Elliot,
Yes, Stephen.
I'd like to just go back and reiterate something that we talked about either last meeting or the one before. When we did our dinghy survey, of the docks, we sort of discovered that given the number of permits that were for kayaks versus the number of permits that were for small boats, that even with 207 and the number of boats that were actually stored in the water, we weren't that hurting. And so I'd like to just go back to the idea that one of the best solutions might be to build additional dinghy space as a right angle float system out from Steamboat Landing, from the end of that dock, would both provide more dinghy storage, more small boat storage space, and more protection for those boats that are currently stored at Steamboat Landing. And also, just while I have the mic, to ultimately perhaps clean up the language of Section B, because, saying dinghies, tenders, skiffs, and other vessels, all of those can be what we have been calling dinghies.
I think we should stay conceptual at this point instead of getting lost in let's play with this language. Because I think the issue is how many places, let's just keep kayaks simple. They go to dry land, they're not our issue. There may end up being not enough rack space for them, but probably you can get more rack space in the present places already. I don't know that, but the real question is how many we have. Steamboat Landing, we have the float I was just talking about in front of Steve's office. Then there's the float that faces that's like the first one as you come down the ramp to the right. I don't know how many other places we presently have for saltwater storage of generic dinghies, and that we ought to think about that and think about, well, any of those, as I was saying before about that float that's on the seawall, you're not really putting, Steve's Avon with a real engine on that float. So that has to be a certain limited purpose, and then presumably the float that's next to it, why are you putting a rowboat there when you could just limit it to motorboats? And then steamboat, but I don't know if there's other places. And so how much capacity do we have for the different boats right now? And then the second question is, can we increase some of that capacity?
Okay, you're asking how much capacity we have now, is that right?
For the different types of boats.
Capacity for different types of boats. I'm not sure I understand what you mean by that.
And this is my prejudice, I think that we need to have at least some, if not all, of the saltwater storage floats that are either intended for rowing craft or motor craft. And maybe we find that there are some places where it makes sense to have both. But I think we ought to focus on trying to organize what we've got.
Oh, okay, I understand that. Right now, we have capacity and we define the lineal footage of our dinghy dock floats. And I don't have that number right in front of me right now, but we know about how many feet of capacity we have. But we don't currently segregate by type.
Right.
We're not doing that right now.
And that's what I think we should be doing.
Yes. Okay.
And that there's even below that, there's the Steve Seawall dock that my rowboat would not work well on because it's so freaking heavy. So if you've got the little, for lack of a better term, the Dyer-Dow type things where you can bring it up and you can flip it, you can bring it up easy, put it in easy. I can get my rowboat up when there's a lot of water in it. I can get it up on Steamboat Landing and I can empty it and get it back in. But so they're just, and there may be distinctions in terms of motorcraft as well, in terms of size about what makes sense. But I just think we ought to figure out how to have our storage places have more coherence to it.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Not just be whatever
And-
boat ends up wherever.
In coherence, you mean organization by type?
Yeah, so that they don't interfere with each other, damage each other, et cetera.
Yeah, I agree with that, Bob. It does get a little tricky though. People obviously are doing them for so many different things. Like you might have somebody who's, different parts, they're going to different parts of the harbor. So to say, you have to put this, you know what I mean? Like the rowboats. I don't know how to say what I have in my mind, but to tell somebody you have to be at Steamboat Landing or when they're usually parking at going down to the public landing or something, you know what I mean? Like
Well, I
they're
think
putting it there for a reason and not saying that they have to do it in a totally different spot. Getting some organization would be good.
That's the factor to discuss, because
Yeah,
I would
yeah.
go the other way. I don't want to be under Steve's office because I got a long row.
Right, so
So
there's
in-
rowing, somebody might just be going out to the harbor boat, somebody
That's
might
right.
be going to Curtis Island,
Yeah.
so there's so many different uses. That's just a piece of the puzzle, I guess.
Question, Steve, that backside of the finger floats, are those used for small vessels? 'Cause-
The backside of the finger floats?
Yeah,
Yeah, the whole backside facing the falls and Library Park is all for, again, it's not, it could be canoe, kayak,
Yeah.
dinghy, inflatable.
but those are all supposedly, those are the permanent.
Permanent
You're
dinghies.
counting that space as well.
Correct.
Okay.
That's one of the major spots.
So if we walked in there on a typical August day, would the types of boats presently stored there be very similar to what we'd see at Steamboat Landing?
Yes. Now, remember, at any given time, you also have visitors that have come in.
Right.
And so a lot of times, yeah, that's a different subject. You might find a boat that's there that doesn't have a permit. That's because it's someone that's on a mooring that's come in for 4 hours or a
But the
day.
mixture of rowboats to motorboats would be quite similar.
Yes.
Okay.
I don't see, again, usually I tell the locals when here was not a fight, but it was a discussion that I would call him a hard local, came in and because remember, that long 80-foot overnight dockage, there's that's right next to the one where you can put your boat up right next to my seawall. Just in addition to that, you can tie up and there's a nice long dock for dinghies too, but we leave a good section of that for, we call transient boats, folks that are visiting.
The segment you talked about, that's the other side of the finger floats that faces the waterfall. I'm curious, do those boats lie in a more coherent manner than a steamboat? Because sometimes you get on a steamboat and you say, who could possibly have left their boat in this configuration? And nobody did or would. It happens because the wind comes from so many directions with so many waves that next thing you know, you get some boat that is in there parallel to the thing with 4 boats outside of it. And do you get the same incoherent pattern down at the falls?
Pretty rarely.
Yeah.
So they do lie more
There
parallel.
might be one that's sticking out a little bit, but not.
Yeah, it's calmer back in there than it is at Steamboat.
Yeah.
I'd like to go back to something that Stephen brought up, and that was expanding capacity at Steamboat, and you may have also mentioned at the River Falls area. And I'm curious to get the harbor master's response to that idea. Let's start with Steamboat. Do you think it's feasible to expand dinghy capacity at Steamboat, and what might that look like?
Yeah, I think that we'd have to drive another dolphin system, the 3 pilings, and you'd have to have an L, the Ben Ellison L. Remember, Ben proposed this years ago, but we were all afraid. So when I first took over, this committee, the existing committee, was so afraid that a storm southeast comes, you got to get ready to take those floats out, and they're right. It can get nasty over there. But I think if done right, we could have an L off the end, and that could all just be for dinghies.
Well, you might also do a seasonal L, so that theoretically after Labor Day, the number of boats drops, but it's only a little bit now. But you might take it out then, so you don't have to worry about September, October storms.
Yeah,
But you don't have
bad
to take
chance.
the
Yeah, once
whole
we,
thing out at
I
once.
see. Yeah, that could be a date that comes out earlier because we don't need it.
With the dolphins, would you envision the dolphins on the outside or the inside of this leg? or
Maybe at the
extension?
end, wouldn't they?
I think you'd have it on the end. Yeah, so it would be, say, an 8-foot wide float, because it doesn't have to be the same width as the 10-foot floats that go out. It could be a smaller section, but built kind of the same construction, heavy, but not 10 feet, it could be 8 feet, and that could then have a dolphin system right at the end.
Well, right now, the dolphins are, and I haven't put a tape measure on this recently, on the leg going out right now, the dolphins are about on centers with the ends of the floats.
It's close.
Is that right?
It's close. Yeah,
What are those floats? 20, 24?
they're 20,
They're 20. So you've got dolphins along the side on
10 by 20.
10 by 20.
20-foot centers, approximately, dolphins currently. So if you have an extension going out, how long would that be?
I would say you'd have either a 20, we'd have to talk to people that, but I would either be, start with 120 or maybe do a 40, I don't know.
Okay, assume two 20s, 40 foot. So then you'd have to have dolphins along the side
Yeah.
somewhere. And are you able to attach a cost to installing dolphins out at Steamboat?
Yeah, currently I wrote a letter to Two Harbor Marine about 3 weeks ago, a month ago, after our last meeting. I said, could you get me a quote, an estimate of what that would cost, driving those, making a new system, and also might as well give me a quote for building the floats. And they have not come back yet with that. And I've mentioned that once again, reminding them, and they're like, oh yeah, sorry, yeah, we'll get to that. So I would, yes, I'm on that. I've also talked with, not to jump ahead, but the library park system that goes out to the Angelique, Mary Day, and Louis R. French. I've got a request from Custom Floats. I'm going to talk to Toby today, Lake City, and say, what's the cost of one? I think we start with one float, kind of where further down the beach where I put the old Steamboat Landing floats, which for some reason didn't.
What kind of purpose would those floats have?
Those would be for dinghies,
Okay.
dinghy storage.
I think on the Steamboat Landing, Al, you have to either really commit to it or it's not worth it, because in the inside of that corner, you're going to lose some storage space, or at least not gain it on the new part until you get past where the boats are tying into the corner. So
Yeah.
to make it, I would assume it has to be at least 40 feet.
Well, remember, you can have boats, since that's not for actual launching your boat, that could be you could have dinghies on both sides. Because no one's going to be landing on that face.
Well, it's interesting because the existing float used to go down this way, but now it's definitely, they're getting 3 or 4 dinghies tied to the outside.
very
It's
end.
like, how's that going to work when that's the lee shore, so to speak, of the prevailing breeze? But people are still doing it.
Yeah.
So I guess you could.
Steve, is there a dolphin at the end of Wayfarer's new string? Is there?
No, and I was wondering if you could use the same type of system. We have a
It's an
mooring
anchoring
system.
system, right?
Yeah,
You,
that would save a lot of money.
you could,
Especially if you say they're temporary.
you could,
Seasonal.
you could have two, you could have a pretty good catting area and have 2 blocks far away, and that could work. Yeah, it would save money.
Steve, I'm assuming that you're talking about putting the floats on the west side, not the east.
Correct.
Good. You could even go, if we get ambitious, you could even have one at the end and one kind of in the middle down the road
Like an F.
Are those
with those
anchors really-
mooring systems.
I'm curious how yours work, because I don't see how the anchors work to really hold those floats in place with the tide drop.
It
And
somehow
suddenly the-
does.
It does, because there's a little bit of
My degrees
flexibility.
are
with
in
the
music,
floats.
so I don't know, but somehow it does.
The weight of the cross chains is more than the anchor itself.
So that actually,
There's
it-
so much.
it
there's so
it's
much
like
chain
it's
down
like a spring.
Yeah, that at high tide they're like this, and then at low tide they're like this, and there's so much weight in that chain. If they're set right, they don't move much.
It works great.
Well, it'd certainly be cheaper.
Yeah.
Than dolphins.
For something we could.
Absolutely.
Okay, and Steve, previously, we've heard about the idea of dredging at the base of the river falls.
Yeah, that's going to be, we're going to need to tread on that lightly because some people, some people in the community would think that we don't want to disturb the fragile marine system. But I think we need to have a discussion on that because we only need to take 8 feet, 9 feet from that little rock outcrop that comes out. And then we'd be able to harness a big area because at low tide, you'd still be able to get dinghies in and out. Right now you can't, or it's really hard at low tide. You know what I'm talking
Oh,
about.
yeah.
Right. What's a float cost, 20 foot approximately?
I can't answer that off the top of my head.
500,000, 10,000?
I would say the last time we had floats,
Well, didn't we just have to replace the steamboat floats?
Steamboat floats.
yeah, but remember, those are
Bigger, heavier.
Oh,
those are hefty floats.
Well, I'm just thinking about our harbor floats. Wouldn't they be similar
well,
sized?
Steamboat floats are what?
Steamboat landing floats are built in a different way, so they're more expensive than a basic regular float. The ones in the inner harbor,
25,
floats.
30.
yeah, that's big.
I mean, I'm just, Rockport Boat Club, we're looking at getting a couple floats made to put opties on in the harbor. And they're 12 by 24, something like that. And they're looking at 25.
Each?
25,000?
12 feet wide though, that's
Is that
3 times
is
the
that
wide
consistent
Yeah.
with?
these would have to be.
Yeah, I think for what we would need, we could go less than that because ours wouldn't be this wide, so.
Okay, let's just say for conversation's sake, $20,000 for a float. So if we had 2 floats at Steamboat at a right angle out and maybe even a third one sticking in, so there's 3 floats, $60,000. Let's say we're going to need 3 dolphins minimum. And I could have no idea what it costs to install a set of dolphin. So $10,000 each? I
Yeah,
don't know.
well,
So
I say let's wait till we get a quote back from, and I'll get on their case today and say we want that for next meeting. But yeah,
there-
I think that's a price that I think, again, we have an obvious problem starting here where we've got more people coming into the area, more people want dinghy permits. They want to be at the water. And so in the last 3 years, it's become an issue. And so I think we're going to need to think it out, come up with some good ideas, which we're doing right now. And then when the money issue comes, we just present that to, the select board saying, it's up to you guys to say, here's the best ways we think that we're going to do this.
Okay, yes, well, that's right. I follow that.
Yeah.
And Chriso, we're discussing a scenario here of expanding Steamboat, and let's just attach $100,000 to it. $100,000 to expand dinghy capacity by 40, 60, let's say we get 100 lineal feet out of that. That's 20 dinghies. You following me?
Following you,
Okay,
waiting for the conclusion.
2 sides. We're going to expand dinghy capacity by 20, 30 even, for $100,000. Does the town of Camden have the appetite for that?
I mean, I can't speak for the entire town, but I think there's clearly, not just in Camden, but all over this area, that there's desire for dinghy access, boat access. I mean, all the spots at Lyman Morse quickly filled up. And, if you can make it right, I think looking at, as the earlier conversation about kayaks versus like other towns make a distinction of in the fee structure, there's a fee for a kayak rack that's different than a dinghy fee. We don't currently, as I say, read it, do that. And like Rockport, some of the dinghy tie-offs are set up with the all-out float, so they're set very tidily. And that's a different fee than if you're on the float where you just nudge in and get whatever spot. So I think you could get to a stage of saying, okay, if you're on the outside face of a dinghy float at Steamboat Landing, that's a different fee than being on
More
the
protected,
dock
yeah.
by the waterfall.
Right.
But I think there's, if we can show that here's what the potential income for 40 to 30 additional floats is and the cost of expanding that, I would look at if we're adding floats perpendicular at Steamboat Landing, is there a way to make them wave attenuating? Is there a way to make that structure a little more solid so that to protect the dinghies that are because the potential, if you put something off to the west, that actually could, if they're designed right, could protect the dinghies on the inside and mean that you wouldn't get
So beat up.
four
Right.
dinghies wrapped around each other and those kind of things. So that would be a component of it and make that whole area a little more protected potentially.
I just think that Steve has something to say.
Well,
And I'll
just-
talk.
As long as we're talking about this, Steve, assuming that we did, say, 3 20-foot floats or whatever, or however we did them, blocks, dolphins, what's the permitting process? How many Coast Guard engineers, et cetera, permits would we have to get to enhance that dock space?
Well, the bright side of that question is that since historically we had a permitted area that we already had permits for the old Steamboat Landing, I don't think it would be that hard because and Jeremy Martin would be better to talk to you about this, but since that system is already there, that's I think the avenue he would go with. He'd be like, yeah, this is already here. It's not there now, but we used to be there because that was massive, the Steamboat Landing.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it wouldn't be that hard. I could be wrong, but I think it would be not that hard of a process.
Where you're modifying an existing pier, it is a little easier. You don't have to,
Yeah,
and it's the outer section.
Of course, it's been decades since that.
it has been.
has
Were
been used.
were we saying,
Bob
Sorry,
was
sorry.
in line there.
Well, I tend to defer, but the whole one, I don't think we should lose ourselves in the economics of this right now. I think we should be thinking about what could be done, what makes sense, et cetera.
Yeah.
And then on the economics, I might be a voice in the wilderness, but I don't think so. That we have, what makes Camden amazing is we have so many public assets that we need to provide access to. So when the argument is about, can we afford to spend public money on the Snow Bowl? Well, we spend a lot of public money accessing the public resources. Barrett's Cove swimming area. Nobody pays a dime for that. It costs money. The Snow Bowl, there's the ski season, but then there's all what we've developed as a 3-4 season, call it 3 season area, because who wants to go there in the mud? But the bottom line is that it's not a profit and loss equation. It's a public benefit. And so we are providing the ability to access the salt water. And that to me is just as valuable as swimming in Barrett's Cove or mountain biking or whatever.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Right? Thank you, Bob.
Mhm.
Liz?
well, I just asked Dom how much our harbor float
Yeah.
was. He said about 15,000 for like a harbor float size, that was within the last couple, we share, me and
Right.
Nancy share a harbor float. That was fairly recently.
Yeah, it was like in the past 3 years.
So, yeah, and I don't know, this feels pretty productive, getting I like Nancy's idea, getting some boats out of the water, maybe a little more storage. I care a little less about if a boat of kind of the same size has a motor on it or not. I don't remember how many had motors versus not, like down by Steve's office, but it seems kind of half and half. So, I don't know if that is but definitely kayaks, you can fit a lot more kayaks in a small area on it.
When I was talking about motors, it's the classic thing is the steamboat landing with the engine.
Oh, yeah.
Right,
having some-
right.
And then I was asking whether there are small semi-rowboats that happen to have, under 5 horse on it that still use that dock in front of the seawall or not.
Okay,
It's not I don't care if they do.
Because I think kind of when they're all about the
No,
same
it
size,
doesn't
it doesn't
matter.
give that much, yeah, so just, yeah. I was just giving what our flow was, just to
I
give
didn't
kind
think
of
it was
a,
that pricey, yeah.
oh, that's my handwriting.
It is. The next page too. Yes,
Oh.
Nancy?
Yeah, I have to agree with Bob that I really think that the space that we have could be used more efficiently. And I don't think it would be that hard to do. You just figure, okay, this area can take boats up to 15 feet with a motor. You don't even have to get into that. And then another place and have different colored permits for each. And I don't think it would be that hard to enforce.
And I don't
Have the
think the
kids out
enforcing is
there-
crazy,
Have the
yeah.
kids out there with a clipboard looking at it and.
So I'm curious, at the head of the harbor, that the float that faces the waterfall, the boats that lie intelligently parallel to each
Yeah.
other, and they are both motor and row.
I went over the other day, and this was at the end of the season when I started following all this, and it was a mishmash.
But still lying parallel. Because
For
if
the
they
most
can
part.
lie parallel, I'm much less worried about the engine rowboat
Right.
factor.
I did take pictures. I'd have to look.
Nancy, there was the question about permitting for expansion at Steamboat. Are you able to share any of Lyman Morse experience with its dinghy dock extension?
Ours is tricky because we were able to increase what we could allow for dinghies, but for permits, we say 10 feet or less, knowing that our transients are going to come into our docks with all kinds.
I'm referring to Army Corps of Engineer and state.
Oh, he means
Yeah,
expansion
the
permits you had to
permitting
get. to
Oh,
that.
Extending
I
those
wasn't
floats.
part of that. Josh
Well,
Moore
that
took
was
care
really
of that.
complicated
Yeah.
by the legal
Well,
situation.
the
Yeah.
town, I can speak. So I was at the planning board, that was, again, because it was extending an existing set of floats, the Army Corps component was a permit by rule definition in the state, and then it just, it triggered something with the town that we had to go through a different hearing process.
It crossed between the inner harbor and the outer harbor. That was significant.
That was that was part of it, but there was something else. But anyway, I mean, but it was the town piece that we had misread a rule that delayed the approval because we had to go through a formal hearing and a couple other stages. But again, because it was and because there are no piling, because there's mooring, it's moorings and floats rather than any
Dolphins,
major thing into the ground. So that's simplified that. It wasn't a super complicated. And it was the biggest issue was the distance from the channel.
Mr. Chairperson, I think you guys are on a great thread here. We come up with some ideas. Let's let, Jeremy and the people that do permitting, once the select board says, yeah, great, let's do it, then boom, they'll hit that. I mean, we can talk about it, but that's not our forte, what to do. And also, I'd love to talk about the communal dinghy share system, the idea we had, because I've been thinking a little bit more about that, and I just got a feeling that would be very successful if we did it the right way.
Okay.
Find the right way.
Yeah, that's my personal view of how people in my situation use their dinghies. I can't imagine sharing it. I can't take my dinghy out to my boat and go down east?
Yeah.
Because I have a share commitment with someone
Correct.
for Tuesday through Thursday?
Yeah, so you wouldn't want to be part of that.
No.
But there are definitely a lot of people that would. That the rule would be, you take that dinghy and you go your 20 feet to get to your boat. And then you take your boat and you bring your dinghy back and you go do what you got to do.
But these are private dinghies. It's not town dinghies that are
N-
like rent those.
No,
dinghies.
these would be paint colored so everyone could know that that's them and you have a permit to use that. And
You don't own the boat.
you don't own that dinghy. Town owns the dinghy. We take care of it. It's a bulletproof boat that you know, even if you tried and you only had two or three or five the first season, I just think my personal, I have cousins that come in and they come in from Boston and they spend 2-3 weeks on Bear Island. And my cousin will say to me, well, I hope it's okay. It was late and the launch wasn't running. And so I just borrowed someone's dinghy because he only had to go, his boat's 20 feet away. I did. And I brought it right back, tied it right back the way I said it. I'm like, no, I didn't hear anything. I don't know what you're talking about.
Let's
But-
get him to buy one of our pink boats.
I think it's worth talking about. I think that would help.
Yes, Nancy.
I think it's a good idea, but I think we wonder about the liability the town would incur. Somebody takes that dinghy out, flips and gets hurt or drowned. All of a sudden, they're at the town of Camden because there was something wrong with the dinghy. I would think you'd want to talk to lawyers first.
We have one. Good point.
You-
Good point. Well, so Steve, let's say I have a mooring on a boat out in front of Lake Beach. So if I want to participate in the shared dinghy, I get the shared dinghy from the dock and I take the dinghy out to my boat. Then I have to tie the dinghy to the boat and bring the boat and the dinghy back into the inner harbor and put the dinghy back on the dock. And then I go out and have my fun out in the bay for the day. And I come back in, I have to go into the inner harbor, pick up the dinghy and take it out to my mooring and tie up the boat on the mooring and then bring the
Yeah.
dinghy back.
Yeah, but for someone for that, they wouldn't want to be a part of that because now
You could have it like a tennis court where you can reserve it for 2 hours, 3
I would
hours,
think that makes
whatever,
sense, yeah.
online. which
Yeah,
might get
exactly.
you
If you're
around
going to
Nancy's
if you're going to go for a 2-hour sail, then yeah, you could leave it in the morning on that mooring and then just put it back. I don't know. It's just something I think worth talking about.
The liability thing would be to have a meaningful, which is very hard in the computer age, release where someone, when they sign up for access to this, they are saying, it's up to me to decide whether this rowboat meets my purposes and whether I know how to row well enough for the conditions that I'm rowing in.
Yeah.
And I hold you 100% harmless. But the problem is, in the old days, you'd have a piece of paper where you could have it and their signatures right below that acknowledgement. And now you have these meaningless, click the things. Oh, well, we figured that we'll deal with that because you have to actually scroll down through the 45 pages.
Yeah.
of small print.
I can talk to our attorney and see if we get a green light to even talk more about it. How about that?
Do that.
I'm also seeing liability the other way. If you said row, I don't know if this idea is a powered dinghy or a rowboat, but somebody has it and they, as I just said, like they're towing it back in and it gets crushed. It get
Yeah,
who's
sure. We can look at that.
lovely concept, but I see.
Huh? Okay, yes, Nancy.
It would seem to me that with better utilization of the space that we have, possible addition of some floats at Steamboat Landing and maybe some dry storage capacity, we may not even have to do that.
Correct. No, you're right.
Okay. All right. Yes, Stephen.
This is a little out of context, but just for the future, when it comes to the time if we want to pursue additional space at additional cost, I would like to remind the group of the discussion, and I intend to take it up with the budget committee, how various expenses in town have been labeled as harbor expenses that are not, so that when we talk about $50,000 or whatever to do this, understand how much income the harbor actually generates for the town.
That's a good point, Stephen. And are you on the budget committee?
No, I'm not. I will just be a
Joining their
welcomed visitor.
You would be.
process participant.
Yes.
Okay, very good. I'd like to bring our attention to the dinghy permit application. And many of us are probably familiar with this form. I think, how does the committee feel about having a separate permit application for what I call personal vessels? kayaks, canoes, stand-up paddle boards, or whatever.
Could you just have a box? Check a box, what kind of vessel?
That would be good.
Sorry, I thought you were done, Elliot, sorry.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, that's what he's looking for, the chairperson for input.
It's a different, it's a multiple vessel permit application. And should those personal vessels have a separate and distinct fee from motored or non-motored dinghies?
I think that they are two entirely, that the present system was totally designed with the idea of rowboats, small power boats in the saltwater storage.
Mhm.
And then the kayak thing came along. I think it's a whole different set of discussions. And so, yes, I think it should be a separate process. I don't know what the fee should be because I just think it is two distinctly different things.
Okay, and so let's,
Yeah, I agree. I think on first, maybe if we discuss it more, I might change my mind, but I think Nancy's right. You want to encourage folks, dry storage, we have more opportunity to increase that, those numbers. Lake Beach, you could put another rack there. So if you could make it so more folks want a dry storage permit because it's less, I think that would behoove us.
And maybe that is the distinction. It's not, most of them are kayaks right now, but there are some small rowboats. And I wouldn't think that if they're using the same space, it'd be the same application and the same
Yeah,
set of concerns.
same application. It's if you check, you pay for that, you have a different colored sticker, that should not be left in the water. It should be stored dry in the one of the racks.
yes, Nancy?
Sorry to keep, does that form, I haven't seen it before, does it have specifications on it? And the
Does it have
type
what?
of vessel? Does it have like the dimensions of the vessel and?
Boat length? Boat length. And it says dinghy shall not exceed 14-foot total vessel length.
Okay.
And there is a definition for that.
I think you also have to stipulate if you have a motor, right?
Yes, and what horsepower?
And there's a difference.
Does the dinghy
fee
have
for
a motor?
motor versus not.
That's the horsepower.
The 14-foot rule is blatantly.
Thank you.
There's been a 17-foot canoe down there for decades.
Okay, I'd like to just share with you dinghy fees. And this is from fiscal year 24 harbor fees. Resident and non-resident taxpayer, $125. And a resident, non-resident taxpayer over 20 horsepower, $225. No motor or electric motor, $75. Non-resident, $250. No motor, electric motor, $200 for non-resident. So a kayak is a no motor for a resident would be $75.
And that's different from my rowboat, or am I also 75?
You're
You are a no motor,
Right.
you are 75. So a non-motorized vessel is $75 for a resident,
Whether it's on a dock or on a rack.
Correct.
wherever.
Don't we have a meeting later in the year when we discuss fees?
Yeah, but not too much later, because
Well,
Yeah,
we
that's,
should probably be if you guys wanted to be in on that, you should probably think about that for next meeting.
that has been subject of some controversy
Correct.
in the past couple of years.
Well, let's bring it up again.
Great. Is
Because
the select board going to ask the harbor committee to review the fees?
Certainly can do.
There definitely has been some issues about that in the past.
What do you mean?
Well, there was one point when we had a different town manager and a different finance director where they barged in here and said, do not discuss, this committee does not, it says nowhere in the bylaws that this committee shall or will discuss fees. And I remember it was pretty blatant because when I first started, it was a big thing. The committee always would suggest, and it makes sense that this committee, since you know the harbor and you are the eyes and ears and the tentacles for the select board, who may or may not know anything about the harbor, you guys can say, oh, we're going to suggest as an advisory committee that you guys entertain this idea for fees. So to me, it makes sense that you guys, this committee, at least as a body, is discussing with me and we're talking about it. And then I wouldn't spend too much time on it, but it's like, okay, let's bring this to the select board. Now they can tell you to pound sand then, but I think this, personally, I think this committee should have some input on fees.
My view on that is if the committee is to be looking at harbor fees, then the committee should also be looking at harbor revenue and expenses.
Right.
Now you're getting into
I was
touchy.
gonna say,
Yeah.
Very deep water.
Thank
I
you.
think
Richard, Richard's been here a long time and he knows that yeah.
If you're looking at fees, I mean, what are you basing it on? What are you basing the fee on? Oh, yeah, we should increase it. What?
But
Well,
I think our
whole-
opinion on the relative fees between this kind of float and that kind of float, or this moorings and locations, that we have value added on that. As to, once you decide that this should be twice as much as that,
Yeah.
What are the numbers on those?
the underlying number is more of a town finance question.
Yeah. I would,
But
I mean, I think you guys should be camping out near the rabbit hole. You shouldn't go in it, basically.
Well, except we are discussing the whole problem of small boat spacing in terms of space and size. And here we have a fee structure that's dealing with, do you have a motor? Do you not have a motor? How big is your motor? What type of motor is it? They're not in balance to me. If a person has a 12-foot dinghy that's 6 foot wide with an electric motor on it, he should be paying the same price as the person next to him who has a 35 horsepower motor on it, because what we're selling here is space.
Okay, I propose that the committee asks the select board if the select board wants the committee to review harbor fees in this fall. Does the rest of the committee support that?
Yes.
yeah, I don't want to waste time on it if we're going to be ignored completely. If we're ignored mostly, we can waste time on it.
Okay, any other input on that issue? Do we want to ask the select board if we should review the fees?
I'd say yes. You want a show of hands or you?
I guess, I don't want to make a motion out of it. I just want to know, does the committee want to do that?
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah,
I'm not hearing any no's. Chriso,
I will take it to the board.
thank you. Okay, I'd like to go back over to this presentation here. Do we want to limit the number of dinghy permits?
Not yet.
No,
Yeah.
no.
I think we really need to figure out, so how much capacity do we have? How close are we? Which means we need to break down that dry storage versus wet storage to start with, and whether we can increase our capacity.
Okay, storage capacity. Yes, maybe, we want to look at that.
Yes.
Yes.
We previously had talked about launch services in Camden Harbor, and we have private launch services right now.
That are very expensive.
Well, I think our question was, and maybe Nancy can really give us, but
Yeah.
whether there's a possibility that the town could be paying X amount to either the launch services so that there was some ability to have people either ride for, Camden residents, whatever it is, ride for less because you're getting subsidized by the town. And that takes some people who only use their rowboats or, dinghies occasionally, saying, screw the dinghy. I'd much rather just find Wayfarer and go.
I think there would be two concerns there. Number one is we would want to make sure that the people in the middle of the summer, we get stacked up with our own customers using the dinghy. And I think our concern would be, I mean, using the launch, that with the additional burden of that is, would we be able to accommodate them without making our own customers
You
wait?
literally have a launch is full, so people got to stand on the dock waiting for you to drop them off and come
Or
back
at
and
their
get them.
boats, yeah. And I mean, we could get backed up for a half an hour in the middle of things. And we do provide that free launch service back and forth. And then the other second issue would be twofold, is where are these folks gonna park? You know, if they're getting on at our facility, we have limited parking as is.
The back and forth only if you're eating at a restaurant.
Yes, just to get them over. Maybe that could be tweaked for the inner harbor. You know, if we're around there anyway, what's the big deal? I mean, I'm saying this, I'm not sure, but
I would think they wouldn't be getting on, they'd be getting on the public side.
Yeah.
Kind of what you were talking about, right? Not
Well, they
necessarily
might-
parking issue.
Yeah, I'm less concerned with the parking
Yeah.
because we have the same issue going
Right,
down to your road
right.
or whatever. But just whether there was a possibility of having essentially subsidized use of the private launch services.
I would tend to doubt it, just because knowing the volume that we deal with in the height of the summer, it would create a huge burden for us.
Nancy, I thought I heard you say our customers,
Mhm.
taking our customers back and forth. Can you define what a customer?
It would be anybody staying with us on our moorings or on our harbor floats or on our docks. Plus, we also have an unlimited launch pass that as of now, we have that service available that people can pay for.
So what's the unlimited pass cost?
That is 500. But that is as much as you want to use to and from your boat. Right now, you know, we haven't been overburdened with that. But if it were to get to be too much, I don't think we could handle it.
So anybody can buy that,
Correct.
okay? All right, we talked about docking areas by type. I think there is some interest in looking at that more, all right? Yeah. Prop down rule.
Enforce it.
Do we support the prop down rule?
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah, and remember, that's, if you are way over that one area where it's very low tide, and then that wouldn't be there, because then the actual prop would get banged up by the rocks.
Right, but then that's where we go to organizing the fleet. That's only going to be for human powered, and motors get a priority on a different side of the floats.
Yep. All right.
Okay. We've talked about a communal share system and liabilities and pros and cons, how that system might work. Change dinghy dimensions, and this would be an ordinance change. Is there any appetite for that?
I think it should be just part of the conversation.
I think we should just
Yeah,
enforce
part
what
of-
we already have would be a good start. Because there's some pretty big ones down there.
All right, so we don't necessarily want to change any definitions.
Remind me, the quotes 13-foot whaler with an engine on the back. Is that's probably exceeds the 14-foot?
Probably.
Yeah. And again, if it's 14, 10 inches, I haven't, with this committee's approval, the past committees, you know, if it's not an issue, don't enforce it. But we could start.
I was just curious about what 14 feet really means.
Yeah. It means total vessel length.
Yeah.
That's what it's TVL, which means you've got to fit that as berthed inside a shoebox.
The shoebox rule.
I think
Shoebox
the only, at Steamboat Landing, there's like one or two boats that I don't think have engines on them that might exceed that. And maybe they're just thin and not out that long. They just look long. I'm not sure. I don't think it's a big deal.
If you had a minimum horsepower, might that alleviate some of the problem? I mean, if you're putting a 25 horse on a boat, it's gonna be more than,
We
14
we
feet.
did talk about that, Nancy. Thanks for bringing it up. We talked about if you have making it so we have a string of moorings close by. That's why that's why I like the communal dinghy, because if you had, just like the yacht club has like a string of like 8 small whaler moorings, if we had even maybe like that inside of that, which it's 3 feet at low tide, and then make it so these folks, instead of having their 35 horsepower whalers or inflatables at the dry dock, you're not allowed to do that. You have to put it on this mooring. And we can make it so it's a special wait list, so very low draft, so they just get on the wait list and they immediately get a mooring. That's another option too.
Right, we
How
don't
do you
necessarily,
get to that mooring?
You would either use the communal dinghy or your own dinghy. Again, it'd be so close to the shore.
Wait a minute, your own dinghy to get to your dinghy mooring.
Yeah, that's
Right.
well, I think that, so
Well-
let's put those, was there somewhere we can put those? There's only a couple of those 13-foot whalers, like, and if they are pretty close to fitting the ordinance, which it sounds like they are, maybe not kick them out, but let's figure out, is there a better,
Yeah.
I mean, what's the wait list for this finger floats? Probably quite long. So, but just being, I don't know the solution, but instead of saying you're a couple inches over,
Yeah.
There's just something to contemplate. There's a few places that are moving to a weight category for dinghies instead of length and stuff, because as much as like configuration of boats can be an issue, it's how much weight is on these motion. And so as boats are getting bigger and dinghies are getting bigger, like used to be an Avon that was rubber all around. Now it's a hard bottom rubber thing with a bigger outboard.
Yeah.
Some of them have little center consoles. That's still technically within a 14-foot dinghy, but it's a huge weight difference to your Dyer Dow.
So the issue is that when that thing has some wake, it's banging harder.
And if there's wind and weather, it's pulling more on the infrastructure of the
Okay.
float system
Yeah.
than a Dyer Dow that weighs 80 pounds. So just something to contemplate as well, that it's not just it's not just how the boats interact with each other. It's what is the stress on the
Mhm.
infrastructure.
But I think that goes
The
more,
Vessel being tied to
Yeah.
the municipal.
Yeah.
that goes more to the fleet organization
Yeah.
question. It's not that you shouldn't be getting,
Well, it's just
Space,
because we're
it's
talking
just-
about dimensions. I just
right, that you might want to put something like that at a quieter area.
Is that known as displacement?
Sure.
Weight?
big and tall dock.
That's an interesting concept. You said you've
Well,
you've heard of this?
Boat Club has been discussing, Rockport Boat Club's been discussing, because we had a vessel that was given an exemption to be in a dinghy tie-off, and it was very clearly not a dinghy. And it was much heavier, and it had weight display, and it kept pulling the rope off the wall.
Rockport? Oh, okay. Okay, that kind of goes to the dimension specifications, dinghy specifications. Do we think that we should raise fees? And the idea of raising fees was brought up to suppress demand.
Maybe
Not
not
gonna work.
raise, but change fees.
I don't want to suppress demand.
It was
Yeah,
the context
certainly
was
not.
suppressing
Yeah.
demand.
Absolutely
I'm
not.
sure that would be effective.
Don't like that one. Okay. Enforcement. We're all for enforcement, right, of the existing regulations.
Yes, whatever they are should actually, well,
You don't have a permit, you get taken to the pound. Or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, yes. Encourage users to go elsewhere. Is that your idea, Bob?
no,
Oh, somebody. Who came up with that one? You were talking.
I bet Ron did.
No, but Ron did enlighten the committee on the fact that the yacht club was such a great spot,
You could go
that why
elsewhere,
don't you think about other spots? I think that's where that came from. I
Do
forget
they
who
have
actually.
scholarships? They do?
Yeah, I think that's inelegantly worded. I think it might be increase awareness of all alternatives.
Options.
Yeah, that,
It's,
no, that's
As opposed
political,
to-
that's
Why don't you-
political.
well, there might be somebody who doesn't know that the yacht club is.
I encourage you to go elsewhere.
Yeah, that's the definition of tact, right? I mean,
But it's so far away, I'm gonna need a 50 horsepower dinghy to get there.
But
That's
that's-
okay.
What's the underlying motive of that nice way? It's no different.
no, it's not.
About
It's totally not different.
Underlying motive. It's
Relieving the
go
overcrowding.
away. If you go away, things
No.
are better
Yeah.
for us. Yes, Ron?
There are other options in the Camden Harbor for dinghy access. You can pay Wayfair, you can become a yacht club member. There's other options other than just what the town provides. That's the point of that, I believe.
And it
Yeah.
just actually happened this morning because I used to have one of those Wayfair, I think it was more like in the $100.
Yeah, so you could say encourage
Use the
users
launch
to
facilities.
use non-town
And I didn't
facilities.
even know it existed still. Probably not going to do the 500, but
Okay. I had signage in my notes and I didn't recall why I wrote it. What would signage do to improve? I guess prop down.
Prop down.
yeah,
Would be one of them.
there's not a lot of to-do lists, at least over at Steamboat Landing.
The only other sign I can think of is that on the town dinghy docks, small vessel docks, small sign that says permit holders only.
Okay, so zones by type.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Inflatable dinghies only
If
here.
you rented a house
Well,
for a couple of weeks in
yeah,
Camden,
but I
and you
see
put your boat
when
in the
there's
water
no
over at
room on
Steamboat
that
Landing,
little
there's nothing
transient
that
space.
makes you
I see
aware that
people
it's a
coming.
permit system.
It's true.
So if I move in from out of state, I'm not aware that I have to have a license plate in my vehicle?
That's a totally different thing. You come in here for 2 weeks vacation, you see a dock with a bunch of boats, and there's nothing at the dock that says permit holders only. I don't think it's unreasonable to think I can put my boat there.
Especially when it's next to a public launch ramp.
And especially if you come in for a couple of hours, you could put your boat there. So
Permit required. Okay.
You got a built-in problem there. Elliot,
Ron, yes?
there's a problem built into that where you have transients coming in to use moorings and then they come ashore with their dinghy and it says permit only, so.
There's still the transit.
You have a sign that says transients.
Which is
Transients.
already there.
permit.
I do have one sign that says, for one area that says transits only.
It's not terribly obvious if you don't know where to look for it.
Yeah.
But,
A lot of folks ask me, they'll come in and say, well, is it okay for me to, and I'll say, who are you? Like, I'm just here for 2 hours. We're on a boat. I'm like, oh, yeah, fine. I mean, that's how it's worked so far.
so if the transient's coming in into a town facility, they're paying the town. And part of that transaction could be communicating their options for dinghies.
Yeah, they've picked up a mooring from either Lamin and Morris or Yacht Club or, yeah.
Yeah, okay. All right, so we talked about dredging at the River Falls area. But that's questionable. Dry storage. And Steve brought up small vessel moorings where maybe some of those whalers could go in shallow draft areas. Any other solutions?
I think that this permit could be more detailed so that Steve could look at this, the application, and say, oh, okay, that's gonna go in this area, it's gonna get a purple sticker. This is gonna go in this area, it's gonna get a green sticker or whatever. Just so that it could be better organized.
Yes, well,
That basic permit is probably dates back 20 years, so.
right. And we've heard mention recently about the town being, pursuing data collection and data gathering and using the data to help support decision-making. And data could be collected from this permit application or a mooring permit application for that matter. And the dinghy permit is something that we will review and go through it and solicit suggestions for improvements in what data we think should be collected. And that this permit is at the website, town website. You can access the permit. So committee members should do that and look at the permit and come up with ideas. And that will be an agenda item next meeting. Dinghy permit applications for review. That was on this agenda here, but yeah. Okay, have we beat up the dinghies enough today? Yes, Ron.
Just to address that first item where you're creating more space. And everybody's heard me say this over and over again, that I'm just not a proponent of providing space for kayaks. I think they're being imposed on us and not necessarily being used to provide access to a boat that's on a mooring in the outer harbor, which I think is what this was focused on in the beginning. So it's gotten convoluted. And I think we could probably stand to revisit how the decision got made in the first place that we would have kayak storage at Lake Beach, kayak racks at Lake Beach, whether or not the governing body that maintains, supervises that park area was consulted, or, you know, so there's some creep happening here where it got established as being just a piece of chain that boats could be tied to. Then it convoluted into a storage rack, and now we're talking about adding more storage racks. So that I think we need to go back to how that policy got established in the first place and safeguard the aesthetic of that green space so that it not get taken over, and other green spaces not get taken over by brightly colored plastic items.
Any comments on that?
I think it's a perfectly legitimate discussion. I have to say, I've never, well, I haven't had conscious where I say that there's too many of these things. My first feeling is it's dry storage. I see it makes it a lot easier and less than just go to the steamboat landing where you've got cars and people. And because of those racks, the kayak people can walk down, get their boat, throw it in the water, get it back and be gone, as opposed to having to bring it down on the top of their car and then having, okay, I got to wait for those kayak people before I can actually use the launching ramp. Lake Beach, I haven't thought about much because I'm almost never there. And I do see that up at the lake with the kayak racks. It is something to get used to that didn't used to be there. But I guess I ultimately still come down on the idea of improving, I'm more concerned with the moorings at the lake than with the kayak racks, but improving public access to these resources is where I usually come down.
I agree that a kayak is financially a lot more, people can gain access by getting a kayak. Not everybody has the means for, you know, a boat or, you know, a dinghy or a motor. And it is one nice thing about kayaks is you can fit them in those racks that is, you know, instead of having them all laid on the ground. And at Lake Beach, they're pretty tucked away. I guess talking about from the water, if you were looking at them, if you're on a mooring out there, I guess they're brightly colored, but they're pretty tucked away in that corner. When me and Elliot went down there to look at the permits, they're pretty much in the trees. We could hardly even see the permits. So,
But I agree with Ron's, I think, point was we should not take kayaks for granted and just say, check, we don't need to talk about it. It's, if we're talking about what kind of boat should go where, that we should actually ask the question in relationship to dry storage of kayaks as well.
but I think what, are you saying that we should not have any of the kayak racks is, I guess, what I got. Just curious.
I wouldn't have permitted it in the first place if it were up to me. I would have said, no, I think that's an imposition that's unfair to the other people that go to these park areas to enjoy the space without having it be encumbered by this unnatural, artificial, and bright colored plastic objects. But I think the primary point here is that kayaks, to a large extent, can solve our problem with the challenge, which we have, is to provide access to as many people as possible to a limited real estate space that we can actually keep places that we can actually keep these little methods of transportation, whatever you want to call
We're
them.
not going to put a bunch of dinghies on racks.
So my point is that a kayak actually by definition helps us solve that problem, because people who have kayaks can get access to the resource, whether it's the lake or the salt water or the harbor. They can go out and enjoy the resource without having to impose anything on our infrastructure.
I mean, if they car top.
Yeah. And that's what a kayak, that's the purpose it serves. I mean, we take our kayaks to the place that we want to enjoy, and then put it back on our car and go home with it. And then the next day we can go to a different place that we want to experience. Canoes have served that same purpose for a couple of hundred years. So it's not that we're facing a new challenge here. We're trying to provide as much access as we can with limited resources. And the kayak lends itself very well to doing that, provided that it is handled in the way that it was intended to be handled, and not place a burden on the town for the town having to store something that could easily be stored at the private residence.
I do agree with that, but the part I'm caught up on is that they're taking up the space that we could use to help our overcrowding. I think, yes, in like, I don't know if this year there's been a lot of kayaks over by the falls. I mean, some years I've seen kayaks sitting by the falls, which could be a dinghy instead, but
They've been there for years.
right, but the specifically like the racks at Lake Beach, I'm not sure we're gonna be able, so say we say the racks are gone, you can't keep we're not gonna give you a permit for a kayak, which is we're gonna have a little less revenue if we do that. But I'm not sure we're gonna get how many, we have it here somewhere, how many kayaks are over at Lake Beach. I'm not sure we're gonna have, I think there'll be a demand for some dry storage like Nancy was talking about, but I'm not sure we're gonna get enough to alleviate the overcrowding, which is mostly the overcrowding we're kind of talking about is mostly in the inner harbor.
Correct.
But I hear and respect what you're saying. I just don't know if that's going to help the actual overcrowding where boats are stacked up at Steamboat nudged it.
I just have to disagree with Ron. I think we have to keep in mind that, we're a community. And I feel that anyone in the community should have access to what we all agree is one of the community's greatest assets, which is the ocean. It's true, you can put a kayak on top of a car, but it's also true that those plastic kayaks, as ugly as they are, and I agree with that, they're heavy, all right? We're an aging community. We're the oldest community in the state. And I don't think that telling older people who want a kayak have to, put it up on the car every time is unfair.
I think it could be argued that dinghy docks and floats and dolphins are tarnishing the aesthetic of the harbor.
Yeah, anything man-made can be tarnishing the aesthetic of the harbor.
Right, so
Well,
to pick
well,
out a
just make-
particular,
yeah, but Lake Beach was created as a park. I just have to point that out. I mean, we have an infrastructure that we keep adding to, which is town-owned in the Inner Harbor and over at Launching Ramp. But Lake Beach was not created its original concept was not for dinghy or kayak storage. It was a green space to be used by the larger community, not just boaters.
and for beach access.
I would say as a late beach user with my
Well,
kids that it
if
is
if you choose
no
to
effect.
enjoy Camden Outer Harbor from your kayak, you're not being deprived of the opportunity to launch it at Lake Beach.
It's a
But how are
huge
the
hill.
racks imposing any restriction on anyone else's ability to enjoy Lake
They're-
Beach?
It's an aesthetic imposition. It's
How
not,
about
it's no
the-
longer just a green
Is
space.
the bathroom building an aesthetic distraction?
Yeah, and that's where the conversation about architecture comes in. We make choices we make aesthetic choices all the time regarding public space. That's just
I mean,
That's just part of the conversation.
having an older, even a younger person bring a kayak up that hill at Lake Beach, even bringing my picnic lunch for my kids is it's not easy.
Also, I mean, I think we see it in both Camden and Rockland, that a lot of the people who keep kayaks on racks are people who live in downtown and walk or bicycle to use their kayak because they don't have to put it on a car and kayaks. I think there's also a lot of stand-up paddle boards. Again, it's like a perk of living here is getting to store a kayak handy to the beach so that you don't have to put it on your car.
Well, that's a perk that we've chosen to provide.
Like-
That's what the discussion is about. We're not, the providing that perk is not incumbent upon us. It's something we've chosen to do.
Well, and it's something that
providing an
clearly a lot of people in town appreciate because they're asking for it and using them.
There are those that might suggest that we should have horse stables at the Snow Bowl because they like riding horses and they want to be able to keep their horse. The municipality is going to draw lines as to how much, what it is exactly they're going to provide. And there's the cost analysis, the return. I don't think we should be focused on the revenue aspect of what we're talking about, the small boat transportation conversation that we're having now. I don't think should be revenue driven. I agree that we do provide, the municipality provides access. And the challenge is that our infrastructure is limited. So we're trying to provide as much access as we possibly can with a limited infrastructure. I just would caution against expanding the infrastructure into spaces that were not intended to be small vessel transportation storage facilities.
I'm going to suggest, because I hope we have a limited time here, and that I think the question was, are these topics worth further discussion? And although I suspect that after that further discussion, Ron and I are not going to agree, but I think that it's justified, that it's part of the discussion of what do we have for options? What do we want to expand for options? Because that could be also part of this conversation. And that the basic point of, is kayak storage wherever a good idea, or increasing that? And I think that should be part of the conversation. I don't think we need to come to a resolution this morning.
My purpose for approaching from the perspective that I do is that there are other people out there who share that perspective. So it's incumbent on me to share it here. I mean, I can argue both sides, perfectly capable of arguing both sides of the conversation.
But
I'm
can you
just-
do it at the same time?
We'd have to work on.
I can do that.
Yeah, you can. Yeah. At any rate, I mean, it's adding another 2 cents worth. I do have a personal opinion about it, and that's an opinion that's shared with other people that pay taxes in this community. So I'm just presenting that here.
Okay. That'll pretty much be it for today. We won't be getting to harbor and waterways ordinance definitions, but I do encourage committee members to look at those definitions and consider revisions. And keeping in mind, of course, that revisions to ordinance require a vote of the town and approval process through the select board. In thinking about dinghies, somehow I started thinking about the model of the harbor in the library history center. And I encourage committee members to go over and take a look at that. And I don't know what era that is depicting, but I imagine it's 19th century.
Fair amount of change?
Camden Harbor. And I haven't looked at it recently, but it's my recollection that the harbor shoreline is entirely commercial. I might be wrong, but I believe that it's almost entirely.
Industrial more than commercial.
Yeah, okay, industrial of the era. And I think that's interesting to see that and how it was utilized.
Shoreline was probably quite different than it is today also.
What's that?
The shoreline, Bayview Street probably didn't exist then. At least the area
Yeah.
from downtown to the restaurant.
It also may change with any future resiliency plans.
Resiliency. I'm not hearing a lot about resiliency as being a topic in the news.
After the next storm, there will be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It really happened.
Coming.
I believe we're paying a consultant
It's
to,
coming.
Yes, I know. Yeah, Rockport is paying the same consultant.
I'm going to suggest that to help us focus on the last thing about when, if there might be ordinance revisions, et cetera, that Elliot go through that list on the sheet there and just take 2 or 3 that interrelate to focus our conversation at the next meeting on the particular areas to try to work through so that we eventually do get to be able to say, okay, this is how we think all these balls should come down out of the air. But if we talk about 9 things, each meeting will never sort of weed it down.
Okay, that's a good idea, Bob. Whittle it down into manageable pieces.
Manageable pieces, and to some extent, I mean, I would think that first we want to just in detail talk about what are the strengths and disadvantages of each of the present wet storage areas. And capacities. It's not, maybe not so much capacity, but what I'm learning, because I didn't even know, I don't go to the Inner Harbor anymore. So I know very little about what's there, how it's being used, and what are the benefits of it. And I just think that that's the first thing, is we've got a resource for storage. Let's analyze what it is and how we could reorganize it.
Okay, that's a good idea. There is one item that I thought of, and that is use it or lose it. And I thought of that with respect to dinghies that are stored on the dock right in front of the harbor master's office, pulled up. Some of them are overturned. Some of the dinghies on there, I don't believe they moved all season. The blue and yellow one was overturned there. It never moved. And I don't think that's right, that somebody would hog a valuable space and just let their dinghy sit there.
Dry storage for that dinghy. That dinghy should go to dry storage.
Well, it's on dry storage, it's on the float.
Yeah.
Well, you also never know the story. I get the point, but you never know the story behind lack of use.
Yeah, let's give them a call and see.
Right, so
I thought I was
Call and
headed
see
to a
what's
great
going on.
season, and on July 4th, I'm at Penn Bay getting ready to have cardiac stuff.
Yeah,
So I didn't use a lot that summer.
it's true. Everybody's
Follow up and giving them a call and say, hey, what's going on with this boat? Yeah.
got a story, and the dinghy's filling up with water. And,
But there are, I mean, we can have those conversations and say, hey, look, I'm not putting my dinghy in this year, but I'd like to, because I'm having surgery, can I hold that spot for me for next year? Or,
As it stands right now, we don't
Yeah,
have,
dinghies
we don't
are-
I
have,
know,
There
that's
is
my
no
point.
we don't have assigned,
Floats now.
But that's my point.
Mooring
Is
and moorings.
but we don't have assigned,
I know,
Space for
but my
dinghies.
point being is if you do get someone to say, hey, you haven't used your dinghy all year, use it or lose it, there should be a little bit of a leeway to say what's the process. But by token, to say to somebody who has a permit, hey, I'm not using it this year, here's why, please don't yank my permit.
I wouldn't think it would be fair to not give them one next year. Is that kind of what you're
Yeah.
saying? Like, say you use it the first couple months, we notice it's filling up with water, say, if you're not going to use it, let's get it out. More like that, Elliot, or
well, yeah,
Yeah,
right.
okay.
I'm
Yeah.
not trying to be
no
hard
biggie
ass.
permit forever. Yeah.
It's just to be courteous.
Yeah.
You have your dinghy sitting there the whole season, you're not using it, and when somebody could use that space.
well, the same thing applies to the moorings and the inner harbor floats, but, and the inverse of that perspective is that the inner harbor float spaces that you are required to have your boat on it for a minimum of, I think it's 40 days of the summer. So if you're an avid cruiser and you spend more time on your boat
Sailing than in the
sailing
harbor.
the rest of the coast of Maine than you do tied up in Camden Inner Harbor, then you end up being penalized for not having used your float space enough. I mean, in theory, you're supposed to notify the harbor master that you're not going to be there, and then he's at liberty to
Put someone there.
put someone else there. But then it's the same conversation we've been having for the last 50 years here is where does the liability fall? And the same thing holds true for moorings in the outer harbor. I'm supposed to notify the harbor master I'm not going to be using it. So then he's at liberty to put somebody else on my mooring. Well, if they chafe through the pennant
Right.
and then say, oh, but the pennant was stranded when I picked it up, well, then you shouldn't have put your boat on it. But at any rate, we're in court trying to decide who's liable for the damage that occurred because their boat went ashore from my mooring. And that's a can of worms that we've never been able to answer and probably won't be able to answer. It's just, so much of what we have in our ordinances is in fact unenforceable. And the harbor master would be spread pretty thin if he was actually out there enforcing all of the regulations that we have regarding the proper sequence of events that's supposed to take place regarding moorings, inner harbor floats, and dinghy spaces. You know, it's just, he would need a crew of 6 people to actually administer that, you know,
Glad he's not here.
to the letter.
I'm not hearing you say that.
No, I mean, it's just a reality. It's just a reality. It's way too big for even Steve and even 2 helpers to try to, I know Jim used to go out and just do a tour through the outer harbor and check to see which moorings were used and which boats were on which moorings and check the numbers and try to keep track of it. But at that point, we probably only had maybe 200 moorings in the harbor. Now we're up over 450. So it's just not doable anymore.
Yeah, and I think there's also a lot of, they rely on just sort of knowing who, you know, you can ask Pixley and the gang who half of these boats are, and they know whose boat it is, and they know who, like, there's a lot of that, none of that's written down anywhere. It's just, oh, I know that person, and I know that they, like you said, like somebody came in and said, can I do that? And he's like,
Okay, we've come to the end of our meeting. Shall we vote on the minutes that were given?
Oh, yes. I
Or
enthusiastically
look at
support
them.
them.
or do we defer that approval to the next meeting?
I have 2 questions. If
Okay.
you want to put it off or, what are we looking at here? This is September, okay? Second page, dinghy storage regulation review. What is Tangent Harbor?
This must have been with AI, huh?
I give my vote to Ron. Aren't you the alternate?
No,
No.
Steve and Nancy.
Nancy is,
Okay.
I can't vote.
You can if somebody's
You have-
absent.
Who's absent?
Log just walked up.
Oh.
What's-
well, you,
I don't.
Sorry, I missed that.
but you can't vote on minutes that you weren't at the meeting for.
I did catch a
It's
spelling
supposed
error.
to be Camden Harbor. This looks like somebody used AI so
Settle
AI,
Camden.
which you have to kind of
Email.
change things around.
That's
So
my
that's
vote.
supposed to
Well,
be Camden.
That's my
CamdenMaine.gov.
Now, I got
We're
a
changing the harbor
question.
name, you know?
Right.
Good.
On,
Congratulations.
on the August meetings, on page 1,
Committee meeting.
the last paragraph about lighthouse restoration, the second sentence says, Harbor explained. Who is Harbor?
August. Well, ask AI.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you
the
have to
AI
talk- You have to talk to Zoom on that one. You expect me to go through this thing with a fine tooth comb.
Okay.
I probably wouldn't. have
So is the
seen that no matter
implication
how
here
closely I-
That someone is submitting just the AI summary of the meeting?
Well, it's
and not
quite
reviewing it?
summary.
right there.
Okay.
Well, okay.
There are some sections that are called summary.
That will
It
be
is a
Mike
little-
Scaling.
It is a little
Really,
tricky.
really
And then there
bizarre.
was one here
Dudera
that said
spelt wrong.
tangent. Tangent Harbor, new harbor name.
Yeah, that's a word that Google doesn't know how to spell, so.
That's Camden.
Dudera's name is spelt wrong. On that back page. Dudera, Ed Dudera should be D-O-U-D.
That would be on August.
August, page 2.
I don't know which one goes to which now.
Page 2.
D-O-U.
What page are you on?
I'm on page 2 of August 12th. Ed Dudera is spelt wrong,
Here, I'll give you.
misspelled.
Is that the first paragraph or the second?
Second,
paragraph?
Harbor Committee meeting
Email them
updates.
out. Okay, I don't know which goes. to
Harbor
which.
what?
Harbor Committee meeting updates, Ed Dudera. Pretty sure it's D-O-U, isn't it?
Yes, you're
Memorial
correct.
Day.
That's good. Thank you. Okay, well, those will be corrected and we'll approve
I
those.
thought this was
We'll have a
August.
triple header of minutes approvals in our November meeting on the 18th. That will wrap up the meeting today. Thank you. Next month. Nancy. There are some documents that you should be familiar with.
Thank you.
Yep, I read it. I read it.
How about the committee member handbook?
That I don't have.
Town of Camden Committee Handbook.
Can I find that
Go
online?
go ask Janice.
Okay.
You can ask Janice for it.
Okay.
She will probably have a spare hard copy at home,
I'll ask her.
but it's on the website also.
Oh, okay.
Elliot, do these get turned off before plugged in or no?
You just
You just put it,
plug it in and
Elliot, I did send that to you. I sent it to Susan to forward to you on October 2nd. And I'm not sure I have your correct email. Then she sent me the minutes and I asked. I don't know if it doesn't sound like it made its way to you.
You might not have. Thank you.
Yeah.
Liz, are you applying for the position of town secretary?
no, but